clarify it because a lot of people kept saying indentureship is the second slavery, which is a fundamental lie. And so I had to articulate the differences among the four, but also to make the argument that you so brilliantly spoke of. We all had harms, but the harms are different, and we need to address them differently. Indentureship was not a crime against humanity, but indigenous genocide and African enslavement are. And that's why the UN had 2 decades for indigenous people. And we are now coming to the end of the first decade for African people because it was a crime against humanity. And also the fact that we live in this same space, we need to be cognizant that everyone needs to be healed because it was a process starting in Africa, then into indigenous genocide, African enslavement, indentureship after emancipation, and then the broader issue of colonialism. And I wanted to do so because the Dutch apologized, but the Dutch had indentures in Suriname. And the Dutch also still have colonies, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, St. Bart. And so the Dutch apologizing created a lot of confusion because the Dutch have absolutely refused to deal with indentureship. And when their ambassador came to Suriname and to Guyana, and he was asked about it by both our president and President Santoki, he basically said, we're here to deal with African enslavement. And now, because of the geopolitics of having both Ali and Santoki on the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations, the issue has been coming up. And Professor Vereen Shepherd, as well as Sir Hilary Beckles, who is the Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, have been under a lot of pressure by the Indo-Caribbean Diaspora Network by basically saying that for the last 10 years, you've been dealing with Black people business. What about our harms? So it's been almost a year of debate within the commission. And ultimately, the commission reports to the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee, which is comprised of Barbados, chaired by Mia Motley, St. Vincent, Prime Minister Gonzalez, Suriname, Santoki, Guyana, Ali, and Haiti, of all groups. And they have been given the right by CARICOM to manage the reparations issue. And so they asked us to look at how it can be broadened. And we did that. So we spent 4 days in Jamaica last month rewriting the 10-point plan because it's been a decade and lots of things have happened, to include the diaspora, to include women. And so the whole issue of how do you include indentureship, how do you deal with colonization, especially since the Dutch still have colonies. So I was able to try to articulate the differences and to call for separate commissions because we need to. And just to give you an example why. Rihanna, everybody knows about Rihanna. Guyanese mother, Barbadian father. Name is Fenty. Fenty is Irish. And most people forget that 50,000 indentured servants went to Barbados.
Yeah.
And right now, there are about 800 of them called Red Legs who still live there, and they're very poor. So if you mix that indentureship into indigenous genocide and African enslavement, chattel slavery, which are crimes, then you reach a situation of total confusion and total delays because you can't go to the courts and fight a crime against humanity and add at the back of it a contract dispute.
Yeah.
And so as much as Mia Motley and President Ali and President Santoki were pushing this for Caribbean unity and broader geopolitical issues, there are lots of complexity. So I tried to articulate what they are, how they're different, and how we should approach it. Because if you were to add indentureship to the current Guyana Reparations Committee, then you'd have to add Chinese,
Yes.
Indian,
Yes.
Portuguese.
Yes.
We forget that there were Germans in
Germans.
Guyana too,
Yeah.
and then Africans are
And
indentured
then
too.
Africans. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you're in Barbados,
Yes.
how do you deal with the Irish? So I thought that for clarity, for unity, to get rid of the racial divisiveness that came with all the calls I got, that I had to put something out there, and also to guide our our prime ministers, because oftentimes our prime ministers act for political reasons. And in Suriname, Armand Zunda, who's the head of the Surinamese Reparations Committee, he was approached by Indo-Surinamese to join his committee, and he didn't know what to do, because for indentureship, the question is, what are the harms? They're well known for indigenous genocide and African slavery. How do you value those harms, and who are involved? Indentureship was driven by a law, an Immigration Act. It didn't start in the Caribbean. It started in Mauritius and Seychelles and Fiji and South Africa. That's where Gandhi was in South Africa. And so you're dealing with the British and to some extent the Dutch and those countries and India, because it was passed in the Indian parliament and passed by the Indian government. And as you said, there were a lot of regulations: your food, your religion, your pay, what you got after, the length of time. And although African enslavement was a collective punishment, in essence, indentureship, you signed individual contracts and you had to go in front of a lawyer to say that you were going willingly. And then you had to go under 3 medical tests before they put you on the ship. So they're so fundamentally different. They happened in different time periods. As you said, after emancipation, they came as freed people, not as enslaved. So that's what I tried to do, because it was getting very rambunctious. And I thought that we're mature enough to start speaking honestly about our history. And if we do that, then we have to have separate commissions.
Separate commissions. And that point I want to be hammered in, so that those who are standing on the sidelines to say, Eric Phillips don't want East Indians to get reparations. Eric Phillips is saying very clearly here that there needs to be a commission for compensation and reparations for indentureship, because there was harm done to Indian people. But he's arguing strenuously that if you lump indentureship with slavery and genocide against Native Indians and then put colonialism in on that, then you begin to lose focus. You begin to lose focus. And as I said in my introduction, the complexity of the Caribbean is those of us who study the Caribbean, teach the Caribbean, Eric, you know that very well because you study it, you teach it, know that it's not an easy space to deal with at all. It's not an easy space. You're talking about ethnic differences, racial differences, national differences, but running through that is a thread of sameness. And sameness is a wonderful thing, but sameness is also a very boring thing. If all of us were 5 feet 10 inches, what the world would have been? It would have been a boring place. So although we tend to talk about sameness, we don't always recognize that our sameness really arises out of that human beings define ourselves not by sameness, but by difference. I am tall, and in saying I'm tall is because I'm not short. That's what I'm saying. I am fat. In effect, what I'm saying is that I'm not mager. I ain't thin, right? I like tall, dark men. Some women like to say that you are prejudiced against short men. Are not dark. So, we define ourselves every day by our differences. I don't like spicy food. What you're saying, you're prejudiced against spicy food that you like. And so we define ourselves by our differences. And so difference is not a bad thing. What is bad is when people exploit differences,
Yes.
as they did during slavery. Exploit, um, exploit, exploit differences, skin color difference, and they
Yes.
give meaning to it. That's what they did. They said this color got religious meaning, it got economic meaning, it got political meaning, it got sexual meaning, it got all kinds of things, and they put meaning to it. So it is not the difference between black and white and brown that's the problem. It's the meaning we give to blackness or brownness or whiteness. You see? And so, therefore, I want you all to hear what Eric Phillips is saying here tonight. What we need are different commissions. In Guyana and Trinidad and the rest of the Caribbean, we are several people striving for one nation with one destiny. And we could get there if they listen to people like Eric Phillips and Vincent Alexander and myself and Aubrey Norton was in that camp too. 2 decades ago, 3 decades ago, we could have been halfway down the road, because we said the way you deal with our differences is not to deny it, but to accommodate it in the governance system, right? Yeah. With all due respect to us, Guyana raised it way back in 1961, long before Aaron Lepard, who's now the leading scholar, raised it, long before Sir Arthur Lewis wrote his seminal book in 1965. So, Eric, I just want to thank you for bringing this matter into the open again, and because we have to settle it. We have to settle it. Now, let me ask you, if we were to go down the road that you are suggesting, separate commissions, what would it look like? I'm always amazed at your ability to chart things out and think. Tell us what it would look like.
We have a structure right now for indigenous genocide and African slavery. Mm-hmm. I would see a separate committee, and it could even be managed by the Prime Ministerial Subcommittee on Reparations, which is the umbrella group. And it indeed has Guyana and Suriname, which has this multiracial thing. And then each country could have a committee. Mm-hmm. And they would do their history, because part of the proof is a corrective history of indentureship in Guyana, which is different than in Suriname and different in Trinidad. And you bring the facts together, similar to what we did in this book, which is the Guyana reparations story for people of African descent. And so you articulate the history, you document it, and then you could use that as the basis for identifying the harms, and then you could value it. But these committees, you have one in the specific countries in the Caribbean where you had indentureship. You have Suriname, you have Seychelles, you have South Africa. All of these would now be an umbrella group dealing with the same issue, because you're all dealing with the British, India, and Holland. Reparations for indigenous people in African and chattel slavery is 10 countries. It's a crime. It's a different legal strategy. It's a different diplomatic strategy. 10 years of work has been done by CARICOM on the back of over 100 years of reparations work. Now, indentureship has to do that type of work. And it will take time, like it took us, to document it accurately and to start to create a framework. Is there going to be a 10-point plan for indentureship? What are the harms? Who pays whom? How do you deal with that? So I think if there's in chemistry, and I always love my German lecturer for this, we had degrees of freedom theory in thermodynamics. He says if you have too much information, you can never solve the problem, because some of the information leads you down different paths. If we were to mix reparations with indentureship, it is so broad that you really can't focus on what your strategy should be and how you approach it. But in terms of indentureship, since it can't be a legal case in the sense of a crime against humanity, it's a negotiation, it's a contract negotiation, it's a diplomatic solution. And you need to hear the voices of India because there were 1 million Indians who went on this path. And
Mhm.
before coming to Guyana, 500,000 went to Seychelles and Fiji and South Africa. And they had a different experience because it's a different cultural environment. And the benefits were different in terms of pay, in terms of duration, and the harms were different. So you have to separate the two. If not, no one will move forward. And there will be racial animosity.
And I think that point is well taken. One of the critiques that some of us have been making about our situation in Guyana and the Caribbean and to a large extent in the United States of America is that Indian people do not understand, by and large, the African problem. Portuguese people don't. Africans have a better sense of the problems of others um, because of the nature of slavery itself.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to understand white people in order to beat them and to overcome that institution that they were using. You really had to understand them in a way that they didn't have to understand you because you were chattel.
Yeah.
You are not people. So, you don't have to understand your property. You have to understand the value of your property. But that's your property. Right. But so in that sense, Africans by necessity had to have a sense. We had to have a sense of Indians and Portuguese and Chinese because they came, and immediately as they came, they were pitted in conflict with Africans and so
Yes.
forth. So I'm not saying that Africans are unique. There's something God put in African people's head. It is the circumstances. But the critique is that we don't have an understanding, a thorough understanding of the nature of our ethnic communities. And I know you have been pushing for this. And the late Walter Rodney had begun to address it. And that is in our education system.
System. Yeah.
It's not just saying Indians came from India, Africans came from Africa, but we need to do a critical analysis for our children to understand it was not just coming, it was coming in certain circumstances. And I think that is where we think so we become adults and we have notions of each other that is more folklore
Yes.
than actual reality. And I have to say, in fairness to people like yourself and Alexander and Nigel Hughes and the David Hines and Ogunsi and so on, that there is a group of Africans. I noticed my friend Donald Ramatar talk about Indian nationalists and African nationalists in his reply to the people about Jagan. And I have to say, I am not an expert on Indian nationalists, but I'm an expert on African nationalists because I belong to that community. And by necessity, African nationalists have to grapple with a whole range of issues. We have to grapple with class. We have to grapple with gender. We have to grapple with nationalism, meaning the nation state. We have to grapple with international relations in a different way.
Pan-Africanism. Yeah.
Exactly. And so, therefore, when you talk about African national, Rodney used to shout at them, he says, the African scholar has a duty to the African people. When you finish reading all them books, at the end of the day, what you're reading them for. And he said, we have to put what we have learned at the service of, we can't shirk that responsibility then. In a sense that they've invested in us. So I hear they talk about African nationalists as some of the other, that's all we are. I know Eric Phillips is an African nationalist, but he's many, many other things, right? He's an engineer, he's a businessman. They try to ghettoize us as though we are one thing and so forth.
Yeah.
Eric, clearly what you just said there, a place like Nevis, there'd be no need for
Right.
a commission on indentureship.
Right.
I mean, is that complex? Or
Yes.
this thing are? I want you to explain colonialism for an audience, because I think those of us who read it, we got the Native Indian thing quickly. We got the African thing. We got the indentureship thing, but colonialism is a hardy. And given the whole historic arc and so forth. But I thought, when I saw your thing, I said, Lord, brilliant here. Explain to us how colonialism is different from the others within the context of our call for reparations.
Let me read what I wrote, and
Good.
then I'll explain it.
Exactly.
I wrote, colonialism is the political and economic domination, administration, and influence of the European and other foreign powers over the Caribbean territories and people, which resulted in the modernization, globalization, and cooperation of the Caribbean region, as well as the disruption, oppression, and dependency of the Caribbean nations and cultures. So it's many things.
Mm-hmm.
As you put it first and best, it was a system of extreme oppression.
Yes.
But it had sinister parts to it. And we're still suffering from neocolonialism today because we've inherited what they have wanted us to inherit. So even if you were to look at our oil contract, that is colonialism in an extreme sense, in that you have resources and you are being dominated with your resources because of some construct called the sanctity of contracts and international law, even though you know it's an odious contract and you can't do anything because the international architecture is supportive of colonialism. It is also a system of extreme exploitation. It is a system of imperialism. It is a system where you are forced to adopt other people's cultures, their religion, their attitudes. And if you don't comply, then you are deemed to be, as they're doing in Haiti now, you're a gang. You are outside of societal norms. So colonialism is very, very silent, very, very dangerous, because we don't think of it, because we become independent.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yet, everything we have in Guyana, whether it's the Westminster system, is a colonial system.
Yes.
That doesn't suit our needs as a multicultural nation. Because when you say winner take all, that's for a homogeneous society.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who wins, you're all the same. But in a winner take all system in a place like Guyana, where you have these ethnic groups, it means that there's exclusion and inclusion, and that is against even the philosophy of being one people, one nation, one destiny. So colonialism is what has led to this capitalism that we have, because they're linked.
Yeah.
Colonialism was the basis of capitalism. Slavery was the basis of capitalism. So they're linked.
Yeah.
And so we talk about colonial powers, and you look at Gaza. That gives you a sense of what colonial powers do. They're settlers, and they dominate every aspect of another people's lives. And that's the same thing that we went through and are still going through in our legislature, in our political system, in our education system. I mean, Indians were told they had to convert to Christianity. I'm born a Hindu, and you were telling me that you can't go to school unless you're a Christian. So all of these are colonial things that are there to divide and rule and to dominate. So whilst you're busy fighting among yourselves, they're taking the land and everything. So it's a legal system. Yes. It's a mental system. It's an economic system of oppression and exploitation. And sadly enough of us are trained to become neo-colonists to oppress our own people.
Our own people.
And
around
that
people.
is the goal of colonialism, to grow itself.
Take me back to Chinua Achebe, who I think a series of
Yes,
books. I
yes.
I mean, Eric,
Things fall apart.
things
Yeah.
fall apart, and some of the others I'm forgetting now, but it's
And
about
even black skin, white mass, how that
by,
was
by
treated. It's
Fanon.
about colonialism.
Yeah, and I think they probe that colonial thing. Here's my question to you, Eric. How do we then frame reparations for colonialism?
David, it's extraordinarily difficult. And that's why I wanted to separate it into something else.
There you go.
New Zealand is a colony.
Yes,
Canada
Australia,
is a colony. Australia is a colony.
Canada.
So how do you deal with that from a legal point of view, from an international law perspective? It is so ambiguous, it's so amorphous, but so real. So we understand it in the context that the Dutch have apologized, and part of reparations is non-repetition. Therefore, you should not have colonies. So we're dealing with it in the Caribbean space like that. But when you open it to the broader context of colonization, I don't know how you address it,
Yeah,
because the world is built around colonization, and there
yeah.
nobody's gonna take themselves to court or give up the power that they've gotten from colonization. And how do you value it? How many
Yeah.
lives have been lost? What has been extracted? What has been stolen? It is so messy that if you were to bring it together in this reparations movement in one committee,
Yes.
where do you go?
Where do you go? And when you consider our Caribbean, our CARICOM Caribbean, where
Well,
Barbados
complex.
was a settler colony,
Yes,
as opposed to the rest of us, we
yes,
were not settler colonies. So then you get into a whole kind of thing. And many people did not realize at one time Barbados seceded from the British.
yes.
A
And
lot
then
of
the French colonies are different than the Dutch and are different from the British because the legal systems are different.
yeah. Barbados has the second oldest parliament in the world after England. People don't know that,
Yes, yes.
right? And they
And then you
got
had
that
the
before.
Black Code out of
That's right.
Barbados. Yeah,
They got that because white people were there. They settled there. And
yes.
they said, what you are doing to the slave has nothing to do with we. You got to treat we like human beings. And
And then to make it even more complex, David, colonialism is indigenous genocide, is African enslavement, is indentureship. They're
yes,
all part of a process.
all part of
And
the
so
process.
yeah,
Yeah, Eric Phillips here tonight. As you can see, I'm enjoying this conversation always, and I know that you all are enjoying. I see a whole set of you just joined us recently. We would like to welcome back CAMS TV viewers. There was some technical problems, but we're back now. We don't have the APNU AFC people here tonight because we have to share their platform with their thing, and whenever they have a program, we don't get them here. But I notice a lot of you are here. As I said, previously, that our YouTube audience has grown. 60 to 70% of our audience now is joining from YouTube, which I think shows the diversity of our audience. And I know some bigwig PPP people are regular viewers of the program, and nice PPP people. Nice. The not so nice ones have spies reporting to them, but the nice ones are usually on, and some of them do send me comments, favorable, sometimes unfavorable, but favorable comments. Eric, let's step away a little bit from reparations, and I say a little bit because it's not totally. And let's go to Haiti.
yes.
Because Haiti is part of CARICOM, as you know, they're part of the reparations committee, as you said.
Yeah, and Haiti paid reparations, which is the reverse.
An historical fact that our people, Black people in particular, but all Guyanese and Caribbean people must know. You know that Haiti paid reparations. I know when I teach my students who grew up here in Haiti is the poorest country in the hemisphere. And then you go through the history of Haiti. A lot of my students break down sometime and cry.
Yeah.
You know,
It's tragic.
ignorance is a hell of a thing.
And
but
you know,
when you
David,
overcome that ignorance, is something.
yeah, I was looking at it today.
Yeah.
Because indeed, as you mentioned, the 1763 rebellion preceded the Haitian Revolution.
Yes.
And most people don't realize that 200,000 Africans died in that Haitian Revolution. 20,000 colonists died. 25,000 British died. And 45,000 French died.
Repeat those.
That was a massive war.
Repeat those statistics, Eric Phillips. Please do.
Yeah, 200,000 Africans died out of a population of 500,000.
And that Asian Revolution lasted for almost a decade, 1790.
Yes, from 1791 to 1804.
Right.
Right. 20,000 colonists or owners of plantations died. 45,000 French died, and 25,000 British died because the British came to support the French. And since then, because Haiti became the first successful country with a revolt, it's been put in a spin. Of course, you see Cuba had a similar thing. But Haiti was one of the richest countries in the world. Haiti, at the time of the revolution, was producing 40% of all the wealth in the slave environment.
The most prosperous, sugar colony. Yes.
Ever.
More prosperous than Brazil.
Yes.
And Brazil was a big
And they were doing 5 different products.
Yeah.
And it was the largest slave population except Brazil.
Yes.
But it was, and it was French. And when the Haitians won, they made an incredible statement. They said, anyone who reaches to Haiti, we will protect you as being free. Any African, enslaved African. And so they started this philosophy that is really truly about freedom. And the West never forgave them. And so if you go through the history of Haiti, they paid 150 million francs in reparations, which because of interest became much larger. They had to borrow money. That killed the economy. That sort of cramped their whole economic architecture. And then the Americans came in, took away all their gold out of their bank, and have since then been oppressing Haiti.
And stayed there for 19 years, from 1915 to 1934.
Yes. And then when Aristide called for reparations, they deposed him. He was the first leader in the Caribbean to call for reparations. And because of that, that's what they did to him. But Haiti is oppressed. Haiti has a lot of wealth. Haiti has one of the largest resources of iridium. Haiti has oil and gas offshore. And so it's a struggle. And most people don't know that there's still cruise ships going to Haiti right now.
Right now, as we speak.
And most people don't realize who are the 10 top business people in Haiti. Haiti's extremely wealthy.
Yep.
But it's been positioned as the poorest because it's been made poor through extraction and oppression. And also, these gangs are not gangs. They are people fighting for their freedom. Of course, they were linked to politicians. The Tom Tom coups, that was with Papa Doc and Baby Doc. So there's a history. But nothing happens in Haiti without Americans saying happens. And that solution is an American solution that CARICOM had to embrace. Because who's going to pay for it? $400 million. What is frightening, though, is that you're asking people from Kenya and Benin to come into a war zone where you have no cultural affinity, where you don't understand it's urban warfare. So you're bringing them there to fail. So it's worrisome, but people must realize that Haiti, the lives that are lost in Haiti, and the amount of wealth extracted out of Haiti since 1825.
1825.
Yes, the slave ships are going to Labadee. And the
You see how bright my audience
Norwegian,
here?
yeah, Norwegian, yeah. The
Yeah,
guys
you see
are,
how bright our audience is here?
yeah,
I hear people say that you got breakdown thing for people and so on. What nonsense. Eric, if I miss a beat, if I miss a date here, within a minute, somebody in this audience provides me with the detail.
yeah,
It's amazing. It's amazing what the wealth of knowledge that resides in our people. And as my aunt used to say, you think me ignorant? Just tickle me. and what we do on a program like this is tickle them. And the knowledge just it's there. You see how quick brother get it here, all set. Eric, you touched on something there. The gangs. I am sensitive to that term
yes, it's a
because you
racial
know how
term.
they refer to us who are
Yes,
opposition in Guyana, right?
it's a racial term,
It's
racially
yes,
derogative term.
yes,
And they know better.
yeah, yeah. And I think this transition already they're talking who could be part of the transition and who cannot be part of it
Yeah,
and who
barbecue
can run
cannot be
through.
part. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you if you agree that as part of the transition, they've got to sit down with some of those people, those leaders they're calling gang people.
Yeah.
Or else
G9
this
and the
thing,
other and
this thing ain't
G3.
going nowhere.
Yes. Well, barbecue's already said he's not accepting the solution
There you go.
that was imposed on them because they're excluded. And this is an American philosophy. They always try to exclude the people who died to bring the thing to happen. So barbecue and all of them, as much as they're gangs and they're involved in other things, how can you leave them out? Because they were previously linked to politicians, and those politicians are going to be part of the council. And all you're doing is creating a win-lose situation because there should have been some dialogue with them to be part of it because you can't exclude them. They control 80% of Port-au-Prince. They control the where the food is, you know. And America is smart. They took out all of their people by helicopter. They landed special force and took them out because they know that if the Kenyans come in and the Beninians come in and there is no political architecture to work with them, it's black on black crime.
There you go. There you go. And the previous experience with these
A foreign
so-called
force.
forces, these foreign forces, has not been a good one, and it has left the
Oh,
Haitian
there were murders, extrajudicial killings. There's cholera that killed 10,000 people. There's rape.
rape.
There was stealing of resources. Yeah, it's sad.
Sisters and brothers, y'all are hearing it here. The situation in Haiti is complex, and I can't help but, and I hope that you all are hearing it tonight as you all are hearing it every night. When
But
you
David,
talk,
what is very sad
yeah,
is that they're part of CARICOM.
yeah,
They're the largest nation in CARICOM. Without Haiti, we're about 4 million. With Haiti, we're 16 million. And yet we have done worse than the Americans to them. People don't realize that hurricane in the Bahamas killed 6,000 Haitians.
yes, yes,
Nobody talks
yes,
about it.
yes.
And then they
It's an
come to the
invisible
Caribbean
story.
islands, and because of a lack of space or language or whatever, they're chased away. They come to Guyana where we have the space, and we chase them away, but we bring 100,000 Venezuelans in who are not from CARICOM. So that also talks about this whole issue again as to who we are as a people. We should be holding Haiti. They're one of the most productive people in the world.
Oh
The
boy.
Haitian diaspora in New York and the tri-state area,
Oh,
they have everything.
oh
Even
man.
in Canada, you have a Haitian who's in one of the top positions. In New York, the same thing. And yet, because of our racial separateness, we do just as bad to them as the for other foreign groups.
Just as bad to them as other foreign groups. Um, Eric, give us a progress report. I know you've been traveling recently on reparations business. Give us a
Yeah,
progress report of where the reparations are at the level of CARICOM.
tremendous progress, David. Last year, we had a quantum leap in many ways. There was a valuation on reparations done by the Brattle Group, which is a very credible international group. And they were asked to do this by Patrick Robinson, who is a current judge on the ICJ.
Hmm.
And that study was comprehensive, and it basically said that 31 countries owe 107 trillion. And it was well documented: loss of life, loss of labor, sexual harassment, this, that. Well documented in in an accounting manner that is irrefutable. For example, the Dutch owes Guyana 50 billion pounds. The British owes us about $3 trillion. That's documented. There's also a breakthrough with the Africa Union and CARICOM in that at a conference in November in Accra, there was an agreement that they would work together because it started in Africa, and Africa is now waking up to claim reparations for all the damage done there. So there's that agreement that there will be a common group of lawyers coming together from the diaspora and the Africa Union to look at what are the legal solutions or legal options. There is also a lot of movement with the diaspora. For the first time, reparations groups were created outside of CARICOM. There's one in Holland, the Netherlands Reparations Committee, because we left out the diaspora. What
Hmm.
about Guyanese and other Caribbean people who are in the UK, who are in Holland, who are in France, who are in Spain? So we started to acknowledge that we have to be more inclusive. So we've rewritten the 10-point plan, and that would be more inclusive. We are looking at a different management structure in terms of how we approach 10 European countries. And there is now so much going on in terms of apologies. The Dutch apologize. As I mentioned, 10 of their provinces apologized in Holland. The Guardian apologized. Lloyds of London apologized. The Church of England is now looking at a 100 million to $1 billion pound reparatory justice um, rotating fund. Um, CARICOM is looking to create a dialogue now with these European countries to start to discuss the 10-point plan. And so the momentum is dramatic. And I think to some extent, this indentureship and colonialism is a byproduct of the success of what has happened
Hmm.
in indentureship, I mean, indentured indigenous genocide and African slavery. The American movement has gained a lot of momentum. There are over 240 groups in America dealing with reparations at the local, regional, and national level. I know Biden has been asked to do an executive order so that HR 40 could come into play. And now there's a move to a global reparations movement in which the current president of Ghana, who will leave office in December, will lead the African diaspora, will lead Africa into this movement. We have Colombia with Vice President Marquez, who will lead the Latin American side together with some Brazilian counterpart. And so you're seeing a holistic move now in which Africa and its diaspora, the six region, are making this a priority. But the Caribbean is the most advanced, and that's because we're sovereign states and we have dedicated groups and we're smaller. North America, England, Holland, they're all working in tune now with CARICOM, even though there may be some disagreements on the elements of the 10-point plan. We have the traditional kings and queens on board now, pushing in their own countries. And then we have the United Nations Permanent Forum, which will meet in Geneva next month. And one of the topics is reparations, sustainable development, etc. So Everything seems to be coming together in this last year of the international decade. And we have to give CARICOM a lot of credit for taking that international decision in 2013 in Trinidad and of biting the bullet, because geopolitically, we don't have a lot of power, but truth is power and organization is power. And if you're going to pursue, and let me come to the indentureship thing, we all learn in school that structure follows strategy. And that's why I'm arguing that the best structure to support this strategy of including indentureship and colonialism must be separate commissions.
Must be separate commission. Eric Phillips. Eric is the chairman of the Guyana Reparations Commission. He's also a leading member of ACDA and has been involved in so many causes of African Guyanese and African.
I'm a vice chair of the CARICOM Reparations Commission now.
And vice chair of the CARICOM Reparations Commission. Eric, you've got work. If you look at the screen, here, yes, Orin.
Yeah.
We shall.
Yeah, the Haiti story is fascinating because you need to go through the details. And I have a cousin, his name is Robert Prasad, who is in Guyana. He wrote a book, America Owes a Lot to Haiti. And that story is lost on how America became America.
Yes.
With the several 100,000 square miles added to them that they bought from the French.
Yes.
And that was part of the Haitian battle.
Yes, the Louisiana Purchase. The Louisiana
Purchase. Precisely.
Yes.
We don't know that.
Yeah.
Orange is what it is because of Haiti.
Yeah. We shall do a fascinating place. I always say, outside of my own Guyana, there are 3 places that I visited and I felt immediately at home. When I went to Haiti, or whenever I've gone to Haiti, Salvador in Brazil, and my first visit to South Africa when they took me to a village to initiate. You're visible.
Yes.
Eric.
Yes.
Village.
Incredible.
And when I got to that village, within my first 5 minutes,
I saw at home.
So much at home. I saw about 7 people that I know in my village, Buxton. I said, "Look, that's Miss Frida. Look how the lady walking."
Yeah, and her face.
Oh my goodness. Haiti, and my first visit to Haiti I spent in Jacmel. So up there in the countryside. So in the heart of things. Haiti, Salvador in Brazil, and that village that they took us to that afternoon we landed. They took us.
David, I've been invited to go to Salvador next month in a pre-meeting for the 9th Pan-African Congress.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I lived 7.5 years in South Africa, so I know what you're talking about. And my stepfather, my mom's second husband, was Haitian, so I spent a lot of time in Cap Haitian.
Yes.
And when you meet Haitians in New York, it's such a rich culture. They're brilliant people.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I've never met a more resilient people. Never met people. Oh my goodness. I mean, we Guyanese can be resilient, but sometimes we just drop your hand in the air. I have never seen a Asian. Don't feel sorry for me. They always tell you that.
Yes.
Don't feel sorry for us.
If we want to grow food for the whole Caribbean, just bring some Haitians here.
Oh yeah.
They're incredible agriculturalists and hard workers and full of pride. Anything they do, they want to do to the best of their ability, whether it's cleaning the yard or whatever.
Eric Phillips here, of course, and once we get into these talks around the fire, I think it was Merchant who said we sat around the fire chanting, and Bob Marley said, no woman, no cry. He says, I remember we used to sit around the fire sharing cornmeal porridge, of which I share with you. My feet is my only courage. I mean, the artists are really expressing that sitting around the fire. And in a sense, what we do here and what we've been doing here tonight is sitting around the fire and really talking about Black people's business in a dignified way, in a dignified way. And that's what I think some of those who would like us to forget about Africa, forget about this, they're talking about India, you know, by the way, and they always talk about India, you know, and they could because they're Muniram and they're Prashad, they don't have to open their mouth, right? The Mandirs and the Muscovy, they don't have to open their mouth because the end of slavery ensured that in the context of the oppression, that culturally, they were able to survive.
They were intact
Yes,
culturally.
culturally, economically, and politically, they were beaten up like the rest of us. Maybe less, but still beaten up. But culturally, and that is the fundamental difference with the other experience and the African experience. And that is, and it's a minor miracle. Some will say a major miracle that we can still stand erect in 2024 and call ourselves African without shame and talk about our history and our connected history, you know, because this is Africa, you know, but Africa in the diaspora, and the diaspora returning to Africa and creating a new diaspora.
Yes.
You know, and there's a way in which Southern Africa and Eastern Africa was not involved in the slave trade, but because of the diaspora,
yes,
they are connected. And it's so beautiful to sit and to talk.
David, when you go to Kenya, Mombasa, you had the Arab slave trade. And so that's another history altogether.
Another story there. I missed that trip, and Eric, you know, you still have to arrange for me.
Yes, definitely this year.
As Chief Uhuru, I
still have to come and complete the cycle.
Yes, you have to arrange for, because I missed last year's meeting in Kenya. Right. Well, Kenya, you know, I mean, come on, David. When I was growing up, as you were growing up, we said Kenya.
Yes.
Kenya is a new story. We said Kenya.
Yeah, Kenya.
Yeah. Eric, thanks very much. Your closing thoughts before you go.
I think in the Caribbean, we need to start to recognize each other's contributions and the harms that have been put on us through this evolution of Guyana. And I think if we understand that, we will come to the type of understanding that even though we didn't come in the same ships, because the ships are fundamentally different, that in order to maximize Guyana, we need to find a political solution in which everyone is included and where we have shared benefits, shared responsibility. And if we do that, with the cultural mix we have in Guyana and with the resources we have in Guyana, no country can stop us. You cannot row a boat with one hand. And that's what we're trying to do. And if we do that, not only will the one hand fall off, but the boat will go in all sorts of directions without our control. So I plead to our politicians to understand our history, to understand the shared hurts of our people, and to do the right thing in addressing problems appropriately. You can't mix indentureship with slavery and indentured and indigenous genocide. Colonialism is a box by itself. And if we were to do this and be honest with ourselves, we would really be incredible example to the rest of the world. That's what I'd like to say, David.
An incredible example to the rest of the world. Eric Phillips, thank you very much, my brother, for coming through. I know sometimes it's difficult to catch you because you're always on the move.
No, we have reparations every Thursday, so I have to rush.
Right. And then you were in Panama last week.
Yeah.
You're always on the
Dominican Republic, we went there for the IDB, and the issue there is the IDB is now making the argument that Afro descendants should be looked upon as a distinct group in the way Amerindians have. Because if you don't do that, then the legacies will continue to create inequality.
Yes.
And so we have to look at the real history, the harms, the hurts, and find appropriate solutions.
Find appropriate solutions. I know some people are uncomfortable with the term ancestral land because they're saying, well, um, we came, and so how can our lands be ancestral lands?
But
Any,
David, we indigenized 15,000 square miles,
yes,
indigenized it from the swamp, and
yes,
473,000 of our ancestors died
that's,
over a 200-year period.
yeah. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. My, you know, as you all can tell from my demeanor, I love these kinds of conversations, partly because I know what they do for us as a people in terms of our confidence, in terms of our consciousness, and the people who accuse us that we want to socialize black people to broke up the country and want no these conversations not to broke up the country. We want socialize black people to own the country as as equal parts of Guyana. We want to socialize an African Guyanese population, not to demand more than you deserve, but to demand all you deserve. We want to socialize black people to believe that they are people, equal people, endowed with all the qualities, all the talents that God and the ancestors have bestowed. We want to socialize black people to love themselves as a prerequisite to loving others. Loving others. There's a residue of love among African Guyanese. They have to be among black people anywhere in the world. You don't go through 400 years of enslavement and still hug the descendants of your enslavers. You have to have great love, great love, great love. And you have to have great love because you're human beings. You're human beings. And we are all, we are. And as Bob Marley said, we are what we are, and that's the way it's going to be. You can't educate I for no equal opportunity. No, 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 no. We have to educate you about what is equality and what is equity and what is justice. Because we were taken to the bottomless pit, as Brother Bob said. The bottomless pit. And here we are to tell the story. And our stories are being told through our voices in novels, in books, and in the film, in these podcasts, and whatever you call them. We tell our stories because we continue to have to tell stories. And we ain't backing down. We ain't backing down. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Me papa must nyam, me daddy must nyam, me picnic must nyam. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Emmanuel McLean, the Antiguan maestro, the great short. Nobody go run me from where me come from. Nobody go run me. No, you will not run us from where we come from. We love Guyana. We love the Caribbean. And we love being all we are. And we are basically African for those of us who are African, but we are also Guyanese. We are also West Indian. We are also African. One of my heroes, Rex Netterford, Professor Rex Netterford, he calls it chaos in order and order in chaos. And as he said, only we have the capacity to negotiate that order in chaos and that chaos in order. Yes, tonight we've been talking about reparations, and we have been talking about the West Africa of the Caribbean, Haiti. The West Africa. Haiti is more West Africa than West Africa itself. They always make the mistake, you know. They try to whiten Brazil by mixing up, and all they end up doing is creating 300 and odd shades of black. They tried to isolate Haiti after 1804, and what they did was help to reproduce Africa in its virgin self, untouched. The Americans never recognized Haiti until after the abolition of slavery in the 1860s. They isolated Haiti, and Haiti was able to reproduce West Africa. They were able to mix up the Yoruba and the Igbo and the Fulanis and mix up the Mandingos, and everybody mix up together and create Africa. Africa. So in Brazil, they create 300 shades of Africa. The Americans say, we're going to separate. Brazil said, we're going to integrate. And in integrating, they create a whole set of black people with different shades. America separate, but in separating, they allow Africans to reproduce themselves as Africans. Oh, what a lovely story. No, don't get me going. I'm gone because it's Thursday night and I got to prepare for Friday. Friday's the day I just go and do my little shopping. I was doing my shopping Wednesday or Friday. Wednesday's sales day. And then Friday's weekend sale. So I miss my Wednesday shopping because I didn't get to see it. I wasn't feeling too much over the weather. I was a little under the weather. And so I got to go and do my shopping early tomorrow morning. I catch in the weekend sale. Friday, Saturday, Sunday sale. I go catch Friday because I catch the thing when it's fresh. So I gone. I can't stay much longer with you all. I am gone. Tomorrow night I'll be here. Well, you all know my normal friends on Friday night, but Eric will be back for us to talk about Haiti. And I'm so glad that you all have requested. And always remember, we are beautiful, beautiful, beautiful people.
If you hear that, black is beautiful. Santa Claus. Black is beautiful. It's a texture. Lift your head like me. You're gonna